The European Union is in crisis nowadays. The Brexit is just the tip of the iceberg, but the EU membership is put in discussion in many countries of the European Union. Actually, in most democratic countries, politics has a bad reputation. Criticizing, when two people meet for the first time, criticizing politicians has become a common icebreaker. People find a common ground in criticizing politicians. Politicians are perceived as unreliable, potentially not very honest and not capable of keeping their promises, and so forth. The question is why? After all, we elect them, we select them, so they should be the expression of the people. Why is there a discrepancy between the politician and the people, or at least the perception the people have about of politicians? The EU has a particularly bad reputation, as already mentioned. It is perceived, EU politics is perceived as distant. EU politicians are called bureaucrats. The EU administrative machine is perceived as very costly, as very cumbersome, although nobody is really able to tell how much it costs and how it compares to comparable administration machines such as the USA, the one in the USA, and so forth. And again, the question is why? After all, we are Europe. And since I'm a big EU fan, a big supporter of the European Union, I will try to give a contribution in explaining this phenomenon. The first step is to understand how political opinions are formed. And my idea is that this still happens in public debates broadcast on TV. Of course, in recent years, social media have become more and more important as fora of public debates. But I still think that TV plays an important role, even because many videos, many public debates originally broadcast on TV end up uploaded to social media, and so they have a much broader diffusion than originally intended. Right, so in public debates there are usually three categories of actors, three categories of players who participate to such debates. National members of national parliaments, national members of the European Parliament, and journalists who orchestrate the debate, ask questions, and steer the debate in the direction they want. It is important to note that EU members of Parliament, they rarely speak on behalf of the EU, even if they are elected in the European Parliament. And the reason is that they were elected with their local party, local I mean in their country of origin, and so they feel the affiliation to their country of origin and to their party in the country of origin as stronger than the affiliation to Europe. So they always speak, they often speak on behalf of their party, and they often, or sometimes at least, they criticize Europe, for which actually they work. So this is how a typical debate might look like. Let's say there are three parties represented with three colors, red, green, and yellow. The first party, so these colors have nothing to do with the real, with the colors used in real politics. So the green has nothing to do with the Green Party. It's just for representation purposes. So the red party, the first party, might say, okay, the problem of the country is unemployment, and the economy is not going well. we have to lower taxes to incentivize companies to invest more in the country, and so in the economy, so that the economy gets better. Then criminality is also an issue, and so forth. The second party might say, no, the problem is a bad education system. Education is the key priority. We have to put this issue in our political agenda, to set a new agenda. The yellow party might say the problem is our health system. It consumes too many resources. We cannot afford it any longer, and we have to rethink the structure and the organization of the health system. So, I mean, a lot of complicated arguments and reasoning. That's through these logical arguments, it is difficult sometimes to perceive what the hidden structure of the debate is. Right, so in order to understand these hidden structures, I've built a little model. Let's assume that in this simulation of a public debate there are 4 participants: Party A, Party B, Party C, and journalist. Each time that one of these participants expresses an opinion about another participant, I will call this an evaluation. The key point is that Party A, Party B, and Party C can evaluate the others, can express opinions, but they can also get evaluated. While journalists, they can evaluate, but they don't get evaluated because they are the referees of the debate. They orchestrate the debate, but they don't. They are not in discussion themselves. Europe, on the other hand, is not present in the debate, so they don't evaluate because they are simply not there. But they do get evaluated. So let's start to simulate this little debate. Party A starts, and they could start with some complicated reasoning about economy and taxes and other social issues, but in the end this boils down to saying, okay, Party A is right, we are right, and Party B is wrong on topics X and for reason Y. They say nothing on journalists, and in the end they drop, almost by chance, casually, the sentence, and also Europe is bad, also Europe is to blame. They don't allow us to do this and that because we have some constraints, and we would do that, but Europe doesn't allow us to do that. Then it's the turn of Party B. They would say Party A is fascist, Party A is communist or populist or whatever. Party B is right, we are right. And Party C is also populist, communist. They don't understand this and that. They don't get this right. They made a lot of mistakes when they were in the government, blah, blah, blah. And then also they would say, yeah, but also Europe is bad because, they are distant, they are far from the needs of the citizens. Yeah. Then it's the turn of Party C. Same story. Party A is stupid, Party B is naive, Party C is right, we are right, and Europe is bad. Journalists, they don't get evaluated in all these cases. So, in the end, these are the scores. Each time that somebody says that Party A is right, Party A gets -1. So these are the scores that all these participants get during this debate. It is important to note that politicians never blame the people, the public, the voters, because these are the people whose votes they are seeking in the next election. So they never say the economy is bad because entrepreneurs are bad. They don't do their job well, or there is a high tax evasion because people have a tendency. The people's honesty is not that high. They never want to blame the people. They always tend to blame the other party. So at the end of this debate, if we sum up the scores, we obtain the following values. -2 for party A, -2 for party B, -2 for party C, because each gets +1 given by themselves, and -1 each time the other parties and the journalist speak. 0 for the journalist, who don't get any evaluation from anybody. And finally, -4 for Europe, because they get -1 from everybody else, and they don't even get the +1 from themselves, by themselves, because they are not there. They're simply not there. And so this is, in my opinion, the reason why politics in general and the EU have a bad reputation in Europe. Politics, because if you have more than 2 parties, in the end the number of minus that you get is always higher than the number of plus that you get. And so the sum will be negative in the end. In this case, it's -2. Europe will obtain a score which is even more negative, because they get -1 from everybody else, and they are not even there to defend themselves. And so they don't even get that single +1 that the other parties get. So in conclusion, in my opinion, there is nothing really wrong with the EU. My suggestion for a communication strategy for Europe would be to send people, representatives of Europe, to public debates in the member countries, to state the position of the EU, of the Commission, and to communicate what the EU is doing for the citizens on behalf of Europe, from the perspective of Europe. And the reason is that this is not done because, as I said before, even if members of parliament they do go to these public debates, they never speak with the hat of the European Union. They always take the side, they also feel the affiliation to their local country political party as stronger as the affiliation to Europe, and they never speak on behalf of Europe, or they rarely do so, at least. A possible objection that I've heard to this proposal of sending EU representatives to public debates to represent Europe is that nowadays public debates on TV are not in fashion anymore, and young people go watch social media. And my counter objection is that, first of all, old people are people themselves. They have a dignity, and they exist. They are many, because, of course, the population is aging in Europe. And they have probably a propensity to vote which is higher than the young people. And what we saw, a demonstration of this was what we saw with Brexit. That seemed to be, I don't have now the specific figures, but it seems to be decided, the decision to leave at the referendum, more by the old people. It was the old people who decided to leave. If it were for the young people, they would have stayed. So speaking also to old people could not be such a bad idea after all. Secondly, as I already mentioned before, even if the debate is originally broadcast on TV, very quickly they end up being uploaded to YouTube or other social media, and so they reach everybody, not just old people. And so these objections are really not good, in my opinion. Finally, a word of hope for the future. I think that Europe is really one of the best things that we had in the last 70 years. It stopped wars. We had a lot of wars in our continent, and this phenomenon has stopped only after the Second World War with the European Union in the last 70 years. And it was also a driver of prosperity for many countries in the European Union. And it's also the only way in which Europe can count in the world, which is becoming bigger and bigger, and in which, of course, single European countries would be too small to have a say. So I do hope that this situation will change. And okay, that's all. Thanks for your attention.